When my family saw me at that party, they started laughing. They called me names, made jokes about my old car, said I was a failure who would never succeed. But I had papers in my purse. Secret papers that would change everything. When they finished laughing, I pulled out those papers. Their smiles disappeared. Their faces went white. What was on those papers that shocked my whole family? And what would you do if the people who called you broke suddenly discovered you could buy their entire world? My name is Maya Chen, and I'm about to tell you the story that turned my whole life upside down. It started on a Tuesday morning in March when the mailman knocked on my apartment door. I was still in my pajamas, drinking coffee from a chipped mug, when I heard the knock. Most people get their mail in a box, but my building is old, and the mailboxes don't work right. So Mr. Peterson, our mailman, brings important stuff right to our doors. "Package from Maya Chen," he said with a smile. Mr. Peterson is one of the few people who treats me like I matter. "Thanks," I said, taking the thick envelope from his hands. It was heavy and cream-colored, with fancy gold writing on the front. My cousin Bryce's name was printed in the corner. I closed the door and stared at the envelope. I hadn't heard from Bryce in 3 years. Not since Grandpa's funeral. Not since that awful day when my whole family made it clear what they thought of me. My hands shook a little as I opened it. Inside was an invitation written in elegant script. Bryce was getting engaged. There was going to be a big party at the Riverside Country Club. The same country club where our family used to have Sunday dinners when Grandpa was alive. The same place where I used to feel like I belonged. But that was before everything fell apart, before my parents died, before I dropped out of college, before I became the family disappointment. I read the invitation 3 times. Part of me wanted to throw it in the trash and pretend it never came. I could stay home, watch Netflix, and avoid the whole mess. That's what I'd been doing for 3 years, and it had worked out fine. But another part of me, a bigger part, knew I had to go. I had to face them. I had to show them that Maya Chen wasn't the same broken girl who left Grandpa's funeral in tears. See? My family doesn't know everything about me. They don't know what I've been doing for the past year. They don't know about the secret I've been keeping. They don't know that everything is about to change. I walked to my bedroom and opened the closet. Way in the back, behind my work clothes and old jeans, was a small safe. I punched in the code and pulled out a manila envelope. It was thick and important looking, filled with papers that would shock my family. This envelope contained the truth about who I really was now, the truth about what I'd accomplished, the truth that would make them all shut up forever. I thought about the last family gathering I went to. It was 3 years ago at Grandpa's funeral. I was 25. Then, working at a coffee shop and living in a tiny apartment. My cousins Bryce and Sienna had good jobs and nice cars. My uncle Marcus owned a successful business. My Aunt Celeste was a big-shot lawyer, and me. I was the one they whispered about. The one who never lived up to her potential. The one who made poor choices. The one who was always struggling with money. At the funeral, my Aunt Celeste pulled me aside. "Maya, honey," she said in that fake sweet voice. "You need to get your life together. You can't keep drifting forever." My Uncle Marcus shook his head when he saw me. "Such a waste," he said to my aunt, but loud enough for me to hear. She had every opportunity we gave her, and look how she turned out. My cousin Derek, who's about my age, offered to help me find a real job. Like working at a coffee shop wasn't real work. Like I wasn't trying my best every single day. That night I went home and cried for hours. I felt so small, so worthless, so alone. My parents were dead. My grandpa was dead. And the only family I had left thought I was a failure, but that was 3 years ago now. Everything was different. Now, I had something they could never imagine. Now, I had the power to shock them all. I picked up my phone and typed a text message to Bryce. "Got your invitation. I'll be there. Can't wait to celebrate with the family." As I hit send, I smiled for the first time in weeks. They had no idea what was coming. They thought they were going to see the same old Maya, the broke Maya, the struggling Maya, the Maya who needed their pity and advice, but they were wrong. So very wrong. I put the manila envelope back in the safe and locked it. In 2 weeks, I would take it with me to the party. In 2 weeks, I would show my family exactly who Maya Chen had become. They were going to get the shock of their lives. But first, let me tell you how I became the family disappointment. It's a story that starts when I was just a kid, and it explains why this party meant so much to me. Growing up, I was always different from my cousins. Bryce and Sienna were the golden children. They got straight A's without even trying. They were good at sports. They knew how to talk to adults and make them smile. Everything came easy to them. Me. I had to work twice as hard to get half as far. School was difficult for me. I struggled with reading and math. While my cousins were getting awards and praise, I was getting extra help and worried looks from teachers. My parents loved me though. Mom and Dad always told me I was special in my own way. They said what mattered was being kind and working hard and never giving up. But then, when I was 19, everything changed. Mom and Dad died in a car accident on a rainy night in October. One minute I had a family who believed in me. The next minute I was all alone. That's when I learned what my extended family really thought of me. The funeral was horrible, not just because I was losing my parents, but because of how everyone acted. My Aunt Celeste kept saying things like "poor dear" and "such a tragedy" while looking at me with pity. But the worst part came later, when we read Grandpa's will. He had left money for all his grandchildren, but mine came with strings attached. I had to graduate from college and get what he called a respectable job. Before I could touch a penny of it, my cousins got their money right away. No questions asked, no hoops to jump through, just big checks that let them buy cars and put down payments on houses and start their adult lives without debt. But me, I had to prove I was worthy first. I tried to do what they wanted, I really did. I enrolled in college and worked part-time to pay for it, but grief is a heavy thing to carry. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. I was working at a grocery store to pay rent, going to school full-time, and trying to deal with losing the two people who loved me most. It was too much. After 2 years, I dropped out. I was exhausted, broke, and failing my classes anyway. The family saw this as proof that I was exactly what they thought I was: irresponsible and lazy. That's when Uncle Marcus offered me a job at his real estate company. But it wasn't a real opportunity. It was filing papers and answering phones, for barely above minimum wage. Meanwhile, my cousins got management positions right out of college. You have to start somewhere, he told me. Maybe if you work hard and prove yourself, you can move up. But I could see it in his eyes. He didn't think I would move up. He thought this was as good as it would get for Maya. I turned down the job. I wasn't going to let them pay me nothing while making my cousins rich. Uncle Marcus called this pride and stubbornness. He said I was throwing away opportunities. Instead, I found my own jobs. Coffee shops, retail stores, restaurants, jobs that paid the bills and taught me about the real world. Jobs that my family looked down on. At family gatherings, the conversations were always the same. Aunt Celeste would ask about my job with that fake concerned voice. Then she'd talk about Sienna's law degree and how proud she was. Uncle Marcus would mention Bryce's promotion or Derek's new business idea. Then they'd all look at me with pity. They'd talk about their vacations to Europe like it was no big deal. They'd mention buying new cars or renovating their houses. They'd discuss their investment accounts and retirement plans. And then they'd remember I was there and change the subject. Quickly, the message was clear. They had money and success and bright futures. I had nothing. The worst part was how they tried to help. Aunt Celeste would slip me $20 for groceries when she thought no one was looking. Derek would offer me rides because he knew my car was old and unreliable. Uncle Marcus would suggest entry-level opportunities at his company, like he was doing me a huge favor. They meant well, I think, but it felt like charity. It felt like they saw me as someone who would always need their help, someone who would never make it on. The last family gathering I attended was Grandpa's funeral 3 years ago. I was 25, working at a coffee shop and living in a studio apartment with a leaky ceiling. My cousins were buying houses and getting engaged and living the lives everyone expected them to live. That's when Aunt Celeste made her comment about my poor choices. That's when Uncle Marcus shook his head and said I'd never amount to anything. That's when I realized they weren't just disappointed in me, they had given up on me completely. I left that funeral feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. I went home to my tiny apartment and made a decision. I was done trying to prove myself to them. I was done begging for their approval. I was done being the family charity case. From that day forward, I was going to build my own life, on my own terms. In my own way. They had no idea what I was capable of, but they were about to find out. The 2 weeks between getting the invitation and the party felt like the longest weeks of my life. Every morning I woke up thinking about what I would say. Every night I went to bed planning exactly how I would reveal my secret. I had never been to a fancy party as a successful person before. For years, I went to family events as the poor cousin, the one who wore old clothes and couldn't afford expensive gifts, the one who ate quietly and left early because I felt out of place. This time would be different. This time I was going as an equal. Actually, I was going as more than an equal, but they didn't know that yet. The first thing I needed was something nice to wear. I drove to the mall on a Saturday morning and walked through all the fancy stores, the kind of stores I used to walk past quickly because everything was too expensive. Now I could afford anything I wanted, but I didn't want to go overboard. I wanted to look good, but not so fancy that people would wonder where I got the money. Not yet, anyway. I found a simple black dress that looked elegant but not too flashy. It fit perfectly and made me feel confident. The saleswoman was nice to me, which was different from how store employees used to treat me when I looked broke. Special occasion, she asked as she rang up the dress. You could say that, I replied with a smile. I also bought new shoes and a small purse. Nothing too expensive, but everything was nice quality. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to check the price tags or worry about my bank account. At home, I hung the dress in my closet and looked at it every day. It reminded me that this party was really happening, that I was really going to face my family after 3 years of silence. My apartment looked different now too. I hadn't bought anything too fancy because I didn't want my neighbors to ask questions, but I had new furniture and a better TV. My kitchen was stocked with good food. My bills were paid months in advance. The manila envelope sat in my safe, waiting. Sometimes I took it out just to make sure it was real. Sometimes I read through the papers inside, still amazed that they had my name on them. During those 2 weeks, I practiced what I would say. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and rehearsed my words. I imagined their shocked faces. I pictured Uncle Marcus turning pale. I saw Aunt Celeste dropping her wine glass, but I also felt nervous. What if they didn't believe me? What if they thought I was lying? What if they found some way to make me feel small again? Then I would remember all the times they hurt me. All the jokes about my jobs. All the pitying looks. All the times they made me feel like I didn't belong in my own family. My phone buzzed with texts from my cousins as the party got closer. Sienna, Maya, I can't believe you're coming. It's been way too long. Derek, looking forward to seeing you. Cuz, hope you're doing well. Even Bryce sent a message. Thanks for coming to celebrate with us. It means a lot. They all sounded friendly and excited. Like nothing bad had ever happened between us. Like they hadn't spent years making me feel worthless. But I knew better. I knew that the minute they saw me, they'd start asking about my job and my money situation. They'd make their little comments and give their fake sympathy. They'd treat me exactly like they always had. The difference was that this time, I was ready for them. 3 days before the party, I went to get my hair done. The stylist was a woman named Rosa who had her own salon. She was about my age and had built her business from nothing. What's the occasion? She asked as she cut my hair. Family party, I said. I haven't seen them in a while. Nervous, she asked. A little, I admitted. They don't know how much I've changed. Rosa smiled at me. In the mirror, she was right. My family had definitely underestimated me. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if my plan backfired? What if they still found ways to make me feel bad about myself? But then, I remembered something my mom used to tell me when I was scared. She'd say, Maya, you're stronger than you know, and someday everyone else will see it too. Tomorrow was that someday. I got up and opened my safe one more time. I pulled out the manila envelope and held it in my hands. It was heavy with possibility. Heavy with proof of everything I'd accomplished. Tomorrow, I would walk into that country club as Maya Chen, the family disappointment. But I would leave as Maya Chen, the woman who shocked everyone. I put the envelope in my new purse and laid out my dress. Everything was ready. I was ready. They thought they knew who I was. They thought they had me all figured out. They thought Maya would always be the broke cousin who needed their help and pity. Tomorrow, they would learn how wrong they were. Tomorrow, everything would change. I finally fell asleep with a smile on my face, dreaming of the looks on their faces. When they discovered the truth, the morning of the party, I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. This was it. Today was the day everything would change. I took a long shower and did my makeup carefully. I wanted to look perfect. Not because I cared what my family thought anymore, but because I wanted to feel confident when I walked into that room. The black dress fit like it was made for me. The new shoes were comfortable but elegant. I looked in the mirror and saw someone I barely recognized. Someone who looked like she belonged at fancy parties. Someone who looked successful. I picked up the manila envelope and held it one more time. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt calm and ready. The drive to the country club took 20 minutes. I had plenty of time to think about what was going to happen. Part of me was excited, part of me was terrified, but mostly I felt determined. The Riverside Country Club looked exactly like I remembered. Big white columns, perfect green lawns, and expensive cars in the parking lot. BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Tesla, the kind of cars my family drove. I parked my Honda Civic between a Porsche and a Lexus. It looked small and old next to those fancy cars, but I didn't care anymore. Soon they would understand that cars didn't define a person's worth. I walked through the front doors, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The party was in the grand ballroom, the same room where we used to have family celebrations when I was little. The sound of laughter and conversation hit me as I approached the room. crystal glasses clinking, smooth jazz playing in the background, the smell of expensive perfume and fancy food. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The first person I saw was my cousin Bryce. He looked handsome in his dark blue suit, standing next to his fiancée Isabella. She was wearing a stunning white dress that probably cost more than I used to make in a month. Bryce spotted me immediately. His eyes went wide with surprise. Then he smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile people give when they're not sure if they should be excited or worried. "Maya," he called out, loud enough for half the room to hear. "I can't believe you actually came." The way he said "actually came" told me everything. They had all expected me to stay home. They thought I'd be too embarrassed to show up. Too poor. Too ashamed. I walked over to him, my head held high. "Of course I came," I said. "I wouldn't miss celebrating your engagement." Isabella smiled at me politely. "You must be Maya. I've heard so much about you." I wondered what exactly she had heard. Probably that I was the family disappointment. The broke cousin who couldn't get her life together. "All good things, I hope," I said with a smile. Before Isabella could answer, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around and saw Uncle Marcus. He looked older than I remembered, with more gray in his hair and deeper lines around his eyes. "Maya," he said, shaking my hand like I was a business client. "What a surprise to see you here." Again with a surprise, like I was some kind of ghost who had appeared out of nowhere. "Hi, Uncle Marcus," I said. "You look well, thank you," he replied, looking me up and down. "You look ... nice. That's a pretty dress." I could hear the question in his voice. Where did she get the money for a dress like that? But he was too polite to ask directly. Not yet, anyway. More family members started gathering around us. Aunt Celeste appeared with her husband, Uncle Robert. My cousin Sienna walked over with her boyfriend. Derek came up behind them, drink in hand. "Maya," Aunt Celeste exclaimed, giving me one of her fake air kisses. "Darling, it's been far too long. How are you doing?" Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were already judging. Looking at my dress, my shoes, my hair, trying to figure out how much everything cost and where the money came from. "I'm doing very well," I said simply. "That's wonderful to hear," she said. "And what are you doing now? For work? I mean," there it was. The question I had been expecting, the question that always came first at family gatherings. The question that used to make me feel so small. The conversation around us got quieter. Everyone was listening now, waiting to hear about my latest job. Failure, waiting to hear that I was still struggling, still barely getting by. I looked around at all their faces. These people who had spent years making me feel worthless. These people who were about to learn that they had been very, very wrong about me. "Well," I said, opening my purse and touching the manila envelope. "Inside, that's actually a very interesting question." I could feel the excitement building inside me. This was the moment I had been waiting for. This was when everything would change. "I've been keeping busy," I continued, pulling the envelope out just enough for them to see it. "In fact, I have something to show all of you." Uncle Marcus looked confused. "What kind of something?" I smiled at him. The same smile I had practiced in the mirror for 2 weeks. "Let's just say," I replied, "that you might be surprised by what I've been up to." The room felt electric with anticipation. Everyone was staring at me now, wondering what was in the envelope. Wondering what Maya, the family failure, could possibly have to show them. They had no idea their whole world was about to turn upside down. But first, they had to show me exactly who they really were, and they didn't disappoint. "Oh, Maya, Sienna," said with a little laugh, "you're being so mysterious. What could you possibly have to show us?" The way she said possibly made my skin crawl, like there was nothing I could ever do that would impress them. Like Maya could never have anything important or valuable. "Come on," Derek added, taking a sip of his expensive wine. "We're all family here. No need to be dramatic. That's what they called it when I tried to have a moment of importance. When I tried to be something more than their charity case, I decided to wait. I wanted to see how far they would go. I wanted to let them dig their own graves with their words. "You're right?" I said, putting the envelope back in my purse. "Maybe this isn't the right time." No, Uncle Marcus said quickly. "We're all curious now. What were you going to show us?" "It's probably just some certificate from one of those online courses," Aunt Celeste said to her husband, but loud, enough for everyone to hear. "You know how Maya is always trying to improve herself, always trying to improve myself? Like it was something pathetic. Like wanting to get better was a character flaw." "Actually," I said calmly, "I'd rather talk about what everyone else is doing, catch up on family news." This seemed to relax them. They liked talking about their own successes much more than wondering about mine. "Well," Sienna said, practically, glowing, "I just made partner at my law firm, youngest partner in the company's history." Everyone clapped and congratulated her. She beamed with pride. And Derek just opened his third marketing office. Uncle Marcus bragged about his younger son. Business is booming. More congratulations. More pride. More success stories. What about you, Maya? Derek asked, turning the attention back to me. What have you been doing for work lately? There it was again. The work question. Designed to make me feel small. Oh, you know, I said vaguely. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Derek laughed. Come on. That's not an answer. Are you still working at that coffee place? No, I said. I left that job a while ago. Oh no, Sienna said, putting her hand on my arm with fake concern. Are you having trouble finding work? The job market can be so tough. The pity in her voice was thick as honey. Poor Maya, can't even keep a simple job. I'm not looking for work right now, I said. This caused a stir. Confused looks passed between family members. You're not looking for work? Aunt Celeste asked carefully. What are you living on? The question hung in the air like a bad smell. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Maya must be broke again. I'm managing fine, I said. Uncle Marcus cleared his throat. Maya, honey, there's no shame in asking for help. We're family. If you need a loan or assistance, I don't need help. I interrupted. Derek snorted. Right? So you're just independently wealthy now? He said it like it was the funniest joke he'd ever heard. The idea that Maya could be wealthy was so ridiculous it was hilarious. Something like that, I said quietly. The laughter started then, quiet at first, then louder. Derek was grinning. Sienna was trying not to smile. Even Uncle Marcus was shaking his head with amusement. Maya, Aunt Celeste said gently, sweetheart, we're not making fun of you, but you have to be realistic. We all know what your situation is. Do you? I asked. Of course we do, Derek said. You've been working minimum wage jobs for years. You live in that tiny apartment. You drive that old car, Maya. We're not stupid. That old car, Sienna added, is it still running? I saw it in the parking lot between the Porsche and the Tesla. It looked so out of place. More laughter. They were really enjoying themselves now. Look, Uncle Marcus said, I know I offered you a job before and you turned it down, but the offer still stands. Filing, answering phones, basic office work. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Yeah, Derek agreed. You can't keep pretending you don't need help forever. At some point, you have to face reality. Face reality. The reality that I was broke, desperate, and pathetic. The reality that I would always need their charity. And what reality is that? I asked. That you're almost 30 and you have nothing to show for it, Aunt Celeste said bluntly. No career, no savings, no plan for the future. Uncomfortably, but she didn't defend me. She never defended me. No, it needs to be said, Aunt Celeste continued. Maya, we've all been dancing around this for years. You're broke, you're directionless, and you're too proud to admit it. The words hit me like physical blows. Broke, directionless, too proud. We're trying to help you, Uncle Marcus added. But you have to help yourself first. That what you're doing isn't working? What I'm doing isn't working? I repeated. Exactly, Derek said. Look around this room, Maya. Look at what everyone else has accomplished. Then look at yourself. Really, look. I did look around the room, at their expensive clothes and jewelry, at their confident smiles and successful lives, at their absolute certainty that they were better than me. You're right, I said finally. I should look at myself. Really look. I reached into my purse again and pulled out the manila envelope. This time I didn't put it back, because when I look at myself, I continued. I see something you don't see, something you can't even imagine. The laughter died down. They were staring at the envelope again, curiosity replacing amusement. Maya, Bryce said nervously. What is that? I smiled at him. The same smile I'd been practicing for weeks. This, I said, holding up the envelope, is why you're all wrong about me. This is why your assumptions about my life are completely false. This is why everything you think you know about Maya Chen is about to change. The room went completely silent. Even the background music seemed to stop. This envelope contains proof that I'm not the family failure you think I am. In fact, I'm the exact opposite. I could see the confusion and growing concern on their faces. This wasn't going the way they expected. But before I show you what's inside, I said, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember. Every cruel word you just said, every assumption you made, every time you laughed at me, my voice was getting stronger, more confident. Because in about 30 seconds, you're going to realize that you've been mocking someone who could buy and sell all of you. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Everyone was staring at me like I had just grown a second head. Then Derek started laughing, really laughing, the kind of laugh that comes from deep in your belly. Oh, Maya, he said, wiping tears from his eyes. Buy and sell all of us. That's rich. That's really rich. The laughter spread like a disease. Sienna started giggling. Uncle Marcus chuckled. Maya, honey, Aunt Celeste said, I think you need to sit down. You're clearly having some kind of episode. An episode. That's what they called it when I dared to suggest I might be successful. This is getting embarrassing, Sienna whispered to Derek, but loud enough for me to hear. Should we call someone? Uncle Marcus asked. Maybe she needs help. They were talking about me like I wasn't standing right there. Like I was a crazy person having a breakdown at a family party. But I wasn't done with them yet. They needed to hit rock bottom before I could show them the truth. Maya, Bryce said gently. I think maybe you should, actually. I interrupted. I think I should let you all finish. You were having so much fun making jokes about my life. Please, don't stop on my account. Derek raised his wine glass. Okay, I'll bite. Maya, if you're so wealthy, what do you do for a living? What's your job title? Unemployed, someone in the background whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. More laughter. Come on, Maya, Derek continued. Tell us about your amazing career. Tell us about all this money you supposedly have. Maybe she won the lottery, Sienna suggested with a smirk. Or maybe she's living in a fantasy, Aunt Celeste added. I stood there and let them mock me. Let them have their fun. Let them show everyone in that room exactly who they really were. You know what? Uncle Marcus said, his voice getting louder. I've had enough of this nonsense. He stepped closer to me, his face serious now. Maya, you're making a fool of yourself, and you're embarrassing the whole family. To help you over the years, and this is how you repay us? By making up stories about being rich? Stories, I repeated quietly. Yes, stories, he said firmly. Because we all know the truth. We know what your bank account looks like. We know what your apartment looks like. We know what your life looks like. Do you? Of course we do, he said, getting frustrated. You think we're blind? You think we haven't noticed that you've been struggling for years? The crowd around us was getting bigger. Other party guests were starting to listen. This was becoming a public humiliation. Maya, Aunt Celeste said, you need to stop this, right? Now, you're making a scene, am I? Yes, Derek said. You're standing here claiming to be some kind of millionaire when we all know you can barely pay rent. Maybe she's on drugs, someone whispered. Maybe she's having a nervous breakdown, someone else suggested. Maybe she's just desperate for attention, Sienna said, not even bothering to whisper. The words kept coming, each one designed to cut me down. Each one meant to remind me of my place in the family hierarchy. This is what happens, Uncle Marcus announced to the room, when people can't accept reality, when they can't face the truth about their failures. Failures. There was that word again. Maya has always been like this, Aunt Celeste explained to the growing audience. Always making excuses. Always blaming everyone else. Always pretending things are better than they are. It's actually kind of sad, Sienna added. I feel sorry for her. Feel sorry for me. The ultimate insult. We've all tried to help her, Derek said to the crowd, offered her jobs, given her advice, even loaned her money. But she's too proud to accept help. Too proud and too delusional, Uncle Marcus agreed. I looked around at all the faces staring at me. Some looked amused. Some looked uncomfortable. Some looked genuinely sorry for the crazy woman making a scene at a nice party. But my family looked satisfied. They had successfully put me back in my place. They had reminded everyone that Maya Chen was nothing special. Just a broke, desperate woman with delusions of grandeur. Are you finished? I asked quietly. Maya, Bryce said. Why don't you just know? I said, cutting him off. I asked if you were finished. Finished. Mocking me. Finished laughing at me. Finished telling everyone how pathetic I am. The room went quiet again. Because if you are, I continued, reaching into my purse, then it's my turn. I pulled out the manila envelope and held it high enough for everyone to see. This, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room, contains documents that will change everything you think you know about me. Maya, Uncle Marcus said wearily. Whatever's in that envelope, what's in this envelope? I interrupted, is proof that every single word you just said was wrong. Proof that every assumption you made was false. Proof that the person you've been mocking and pitying is actually someone you should have been respecting. I opened the envelope and pulled out the first document. This is why all of your advice and pity and charity has been completely unnecessary. The room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning humming. What is it? Someone in the crowd asked. I smiled. The same smile I'd been practicing in the mirror. The smile I'd been saving for this exact moment. This, I said, is a property deed. The words hung in the air like smoke. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just stared at the paper in my hands. A property deed. Uncle Marcus repeated slowly, like he was trying to understand a foreign language. That's right, I said, holding the document higher so everyone could see the official seals and signatures. You see, while you were all so busy assuming I was broke, I was actually building something big. Derek's wine glass trembled in his hand. Maya, what kind of property? I looked around the room, taking in their confused faces. These people who had spent the last hour tearing me down. These people who thought they knew everything about my life. Do you remember the Riverside office complex? I asked. Uncle Marcus went completely pale. What about it? It's the building you've been trying to buy for your real estate company, I continued. The one you said would make you millions if you could just get your hands on it. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The owner would never sell, he whispered. We made offers. Good offers. They turned us all down. You're right, I said with a smile. They turned down all your offers, but they didn't turn down mine. The silence was so complete that I could hear someone's stomach gurgling across the room. Maya, Sienna said, her voice barely a whisper. What are you saying? I'm saying I bought the Riverside office complex last month, I announced. All of it. Every single building. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. People started talking all at once. That's impossible. She's lying. There's no way. But I wasn't finished. I reached into the envelope and pulled out another document. This, I said, is my college diploma. Online degree, completed part-time while working 3 jobs. It took me 5 years, but I did it. Aunt Celeste's wineglass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor. Red wine spread across the white stone like blood. But Maya, Derek stammered, we never heard about you graduating. You never told us. Why would I tell you, I asked. So you could find ways to make it seem less important. So you could tell. Me, it was just an online degree and didn't count. No, thank you. I pulled out the next document. And this is proof of my business license, I continued. For the past 2 years, I've been running my own consulting company. I help small businesses improve their operations and increase their profits. Uncle Marcus was gripping the back of a chair so hard his knuckles were white. But how did you learn to do that? He asked. Remember all those minimum wage jobs you were so embarrassed about? I said. The coffee shop taught me customer service and efficiency. The retail jobs taught me sales and marketing. Every single job you looked down on gave me skills that businesses needed. The crowd around us was growing larger. Other party guests were leaving their conversations to listen to the drama unfolding. So when I got my inheritance from Grandpa, I continued, I had the education he required and the business skills to use the money wisely. How much? Uncle Marcus whispered. $5 million? I said clearly. Gasps echoed around the room. Sienna actually stumbled backward. But Maya, she said, if you had $5 million, why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us think you were struggling? Because I wanted to see what kind of people you really were, I replied. I wanted to see if you would treat me with kindness when you thought I had nothing to offer you. I looked directly at Derek. You offered me a warehouse job tonight, I said. You offered me a warehouse job. Then I turned to Uncle Marcus. You said I wasn't cut out for success? You said I needed to face reality? Finally, I looked at Aunt Celeste. You called me broke. You said I was delusional. You told everyone I was having an episode? My voice was getting stronger with each word. But here's the thing, I continued. That $5 million was just the beginning. I pulled out a thick stack of papers from the envelope. These are contracts and deeds for properties I've purchased over the past 18 months. Office buildings, retail spaces, apartment complexes. Derek sat down heavily in the nearest chair. How many properties? 15? I said. Total value, $32 million. The number hit the room like a bomb. Someone in the back actually screamed. 32 million, Sienna repeated, her voice cracking. Give or take a few million, I said casually. The exact number changes with market conditions. Uncle Marcus was shaking his head like he was trying to wake up from a nightmare. This has to be some kind of joke, he said. Maya, this is impossible. You can't have $32 million. Why not? I asked. Because I'm not smart enough. Because I'm not worthy enough. Because I'm just poor little Maya who needs your charity. I walked closer to where my family was standing, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. I took Grandpa's $5 million and I invested it wisely, I explained. Real estate, stocks, business ventures, I studied the market. I took calculated risks. I worked 18-hour days building my consulting business. But why didn't you tell us? Bryce asked, his voice barely audible. Because of this, I said, gesturing around the room. Because of exactly what happened here tonight, even when I was struggling, even when I needed support. You chose to mock me instead of help me. Tears were starting to form in my eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. Do you know what it's like to have your own family laugh at your dreams? I asked. Do you know what it's like to be grieving your parents and have the people who should love you treat you like a charity case? The room was completely silent now. Even the background music had stopped. I wanted to see if you had changed, I continued. I wanted to see if maybe you had learned to treat people with respect, regardless of their bank account. I looked at each of their faces. But you didn't change. You spent tonight making the same cruel jokes you made 3 years ago. The same assumptions. The same heartless comments. I put the documents back in the envelope. So now you know the truth, I said. Maya Chen, the family. Disappointment is worth more than all of you combined. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Then, like a dam breaking, everyone started talking at once. This can't be real, Maya. How is this possible? $32 million. I don't understand. I held up my hand, and somehow they all went quiet again. But wait, I said, reaching into the envelope one more time. Aunt Celeste made a noise that sounded like a wounded animal. More, much more, I said, pulling out a different folder. You see, the properties I mentioned? That was just part of my investment strategy. I opened the new folder and held up another stack of papers. My portfolio was quite ... diverse. Derek was staring at me like I was speaking in a foreign language. Portfolio. Yes, I said. While you were all making jokes about my minimum wage jobs, I was learning about the stock market. While you were laughing about my old car, I was studying investment strategies. While you were feeling sorry for poor Maya, I was building wealth. Uncle Marcus finally found his voice. How much? He croaked. Well, it depends on how you calculate it. The real estate alone is worth about $32 million. The stock portfolio is around $8 million. My business is valued at about $3 million, and then there are some other investments. I paused, enjoying the looks on their faces. Total net worth. Approximately $45 million. If the room had been quiet before, now it was dead silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody blinked. Sienna was the first to react. She made a choking sound and sat down hard on the floor. Her boyfriend rushed to help her up. $45 million, she whispered. Give or take, I said casually. Market fluctuations, you know. Uncle Marcus looked like he was having a heart attack. His face was red and he was gripping his chest. Maya, he gasped. This is impossible. Where did you get $45 million? I told you, I said patiently. I started with Grandpa's inheritance and made smart investments. Some real estate deals, some stock picks, some business ventures. It really wasn't that complicated. But Maya, Bryce said, his voice shaking, if you've had this money for over a year, why didn't you tell us? Why let us think you were broke? This was the question I had been waiting for. The question that would let me say everything I had been holding back. I wanted to. See if you could love and respect family members who didn't have money or status or success. I walked closer to them and they actually backed away from me. Do you remember when my parents died? Do you remember what you did? They looked uncomfortable now. Good. You made me feel like a burden, I continued. You talked about taking care of Maya like I was a problem to be solved. You put conditions on my inheritance that you didn't put on anyone else's. Maya, Aunt Celeste said weakly. We were trying to help, were you? I interrupted. When I was struggling to make rent, not one of you offered assistance. When I was eating ramen noodles for dinner every night, not one of you invited me for a family meal. The truth was hitting them like physical blows. But the minute I dropped out of college, you all had opinions, I said. The minute I turned down Uncle Marcus's insulting job offer, you had judgments. The minute I stopped asking for your approval, you decided I was a failure. I pulled out the final document from the envelope. This, I said, is a letter from my attorney. As of Monday morning, several things are going to change. Uncle Marcus went even paler. What kind of changes? Well, I said, your real estate company rents office space in the Meridian building, doesn't it? The building I bought last month. His eyes went wide with horror. Your lease expires in 2 weeks, I continued. I've decided not to renew it. At the current rate, Maya, he said desperately, you can't do that. We have a business to run. Oh, you can stay, I said sweetly, but the rent is going to be market rate. That's about triple what you're paying now. That will bankrupt us, he protested. Then I guess you'll need to find a new location, I replied. I turned to Sienna. Your law firm is in the same building, isn't it? Her face went completely white. Maya, please, market rate. For everyone, I said firmly. No special family discounts. Derek stood up suddenly. Maya, this is crazy. We're family. You can't do this to us. Can't I? I asked. Why not? Because we share the same blood? Because you've always been so kind and supportive to me? I looked around at all of them. These people who had made me feel worthless for so many years. Here's what's really crazy, I said. I would have shared all of this with you. If you had treated me with even basic human decency, I would have involved you in my business ventures. I would have helped the whole family become wealthy. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. But you made your choice, I continued. You chose to see me as someone beneath you, someone to pity and mock and condescend to. I put all the documents back in the envelope. So now I'm making my choice, I said. I choose to work with people who treat others with respect. I choose to build a life without people who only care about me when I can do something for them. The room was spinning with shock and disbelief. Some people were crying. Some were arguing quietly among themselves. Some were just staring at me. Like I was a stranger. Maya, Bryce said desperately. We can fix this. We can start over. We can we? I asked. Because 30 minutes ago you were all laughing at me. 30 minutes ago I was the crazy woman having an episode. 30 minutes ago I was the family embarrassment who needed help. I started walking toward the exit. The only thing that's changed is that now you know I have money, I said. And, if that's the only reason you want a relationship with me, then you don't really want a relationship with me at all. I reached the door and turned back one last time. Goodbye, I said. Enjoy the rest of the party. And then I walked out, leaving behind the family that never believed in me and the life where I was never enough. For the first time in my entire life, I felt free. I walked through the country club's marble hallway, my heels clicking with confidence. Behind me, I could hear voices rising in panic and confusion, but I didn't look back. I was done looking back. The valet brought my Honda Civic to the front door. It looked small and humble next to all the luxury cars, but I didn't care anymore. Soon I would buy whatever car I wanted, but tonight this car was perfect. It was the car that had carried me through my struggles. The car that had taken me to all those jobs my family looked down on. I drove home through the quiet streets, thinking about everything that had just happened. 6 months ago, I would have cried after a confrontation like that. I would have doubted myself and wondered if they were right about me, but tonight was different. Tonight I felt powerful. My phone started buzzing before I even got home. Text after text after text. Uncle Marcus, Maya, please call me. We need to talk about the building lease. Sienna, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Can we please talk? Derek, Maya, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please don't do this to Dad's business. Bryce, Maya, this is all so crazy. Can you call me? We need to figure this out. Even Aunt Celeste. Maya, I may have said some things tonight that were inappropriate. Let's discuss this like adults. I turned my phone off. I didn't want to hear their apologies or their excuses. I didn't want to hear them beg. For years they had made me feel like I wasn't worth their time or attention. Now that the tables were turned, I wasn't interested in giving them mine. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my couch. My apartment looked different now, not because anything had changed, but because I was seeing it through new eyes. This place had been my refuge during the hardest years of my life. This was where I had cried after family gatherings. This was where I had studied for my online classes. This was where I had planned my business strategies and made my first investments. This apartment had been enough when I thought I was nobody. Now that I knew I was somebody, it was still enough. My phone buzzed again. I had turned it back on to check the time, and the messages were still coming. Derek, Maya, please. Dad's company employs 15 people. They don't deserve to lose their jobs because of our mistakes. That one made me pause. He was right. Uncle Marcus's employees didn't deserve to suffer because of his behavior. But neither did I deserve to be treated like garbage for years. Another message from Sienna. I know we hurt you. I know we were wrong, but we're family. That has to count for something. Family. They kept using that word like it meant something. Like sharing DNA automatically made people love and support each other. But family wasn't about blood. Family was about the people who stood by you when things got tough. Family was about people who believed in you even when you didn't believe in yourself. Family was about love and respect and kindness. By that definition, my real family wasn't the people I had left at the country club tonight. I thought about my friend Jessica, who had called me every week during my hardest times just to check on me. I thought about Mr. Peterson, my mailman, who always asked about my day and remembered my birthday. I thought about Rosa, my hairstylist, who had encouraged me to go after my dreams. Those people were my real family. Those people had earned my love and loyalty. My phone rang. Uncle Marcus's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Maya, he said before I could even say hello. His voice was desperate and shaky. Please, we need to talk. Do we? I asked. Yes, he said. Maya, I know I made mistakes tonight. We all did. But you can't destroy my business over this. I'm not destroying anything, I said calmly. I'm just charging market rate for my properties. Market rate will put us out of business, he said. You know that. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you spent the evening calling me a failure, I replied. There was silence on the other end of the line. Maya, he said finally. I'm sorry. I'm really truly sorry. I was wrong about you. We were all wrong. You're sorry now. I said, but you weren't sorry when you thought I was broke. That's not fair, isn't it? I interrupted. Marcus, you spent years treating me like I was beneath you. You offered me filing jobs while giving your sons management positions. You made jokes about my struggles. You called me a disappointment to my face. I know, he said quietly, and I regret all of that. But Maya, please, think about this. You're about to hurt a lot of innocent people. He was right, and I knew it. But I was tired of being the one who always had to be understanding. I was tired of being the one who always had to forgive and forget. I'll think about it, I said finally. Thank you, he said, relief flooding his voice. Maya, I want you to. No. I hung up before he could finish. I didn't want to hear what he wanted me to know. I had heard enough from him for one lifetime. More messages kept coming throughout the night. Apologies, explanations, requests for meetings. Everyone suddenly wanted to talk to me. Everyone suddenly cared about my feelings. Where were all these caring family members when I was 22 and eating ramen noodles for dinner? Where were they when I was working 3 jobs and still couldn't afford to fix my car? Where were they when I was grieving my parents and needed emotional support? They were nowhere. They were too busy with their own successful lives to worry about poor Maya. But now that Maya had money, suddenly she was worth their attention. I finished my wine and went to bed. Tomorrow I would have to make some decisions. Tomorrow I would have to figure out what came next, but tonight I just wanted to enjoy the feeling of knowing my worth. Tonight, I wanted to celebrate the fact that I had proven everyone wrong. The girl who was not cut out for success had built a $45 million empire. The woman who was too proud to accept help had helped herself just fine. The family member who was always making excuses had turned her life into something extraordinary. As I fell asleep, I thought about the look on their faces when I revealed the truth. Shock, disbelief, fear, regret. All the emotions they had made me feel. Over the years, it felt like justice. It felt like vindication. It felt like freedom. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new decisions. But tonight, I was content to be Maya Chen, successful businesswoman, millionaire, and the woman who had finally proven that she was enough, more than enough. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office on the top floor of the Riverside complex. Looking out over the city, I now owned a significant piece of the morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the polished hardwood floors. Everything had changed since that night at the country club, but not in the ways I had expected. My assistant, Jennifer, knocked on the door. Ms. Chen, your 10 o'clock appointment is here. Send him in, I said, not looking away from the view. Uncle Marcus walked in, looking older and more tired than I remembered. The stress of the past 6 months had aged him. His expensive suit couldn't hide the worry lines around his eyes or the way his shoulders sagged with exhaustion. Maya, he said quietly, thank you for seeing me. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Have a seat. He sat down heavily, looking around the office. Nice place, he said. I like it, I replied. It's amazing how much you can accomplish when people actually believe in you. He winced at that. Good. He should remember how it felt to be dismissed and underestimated. Maya, he said, I came here to apologize again and to ask if there's any way we can work together, I asked. What did you have in mind? My company is struggling, he admitted. The new rent is difficult. We've had to let some people go. Good people who didn't deserve to lose their jobs. I had known this would happen. I had also known it would be hard to hear. I made a mistake, he continued. A big mistake. We all did. We treated you terribly and I'm sorry. But I'm asking you to consider the people who work for me. They have families, they have bills to pay. He was right about his employees. I had met some of them over the years and they were good people. Hardworking people who didn't deserve to suffer because their boss was cruel to his niece. What are you suggesting? I asked. A partnership, he said. Not charity, not family favors. A real business partnership. Your money and property expertise, my experience and connections, we could build something bigger than either of us could manage alone. I studied his face, looking for signs of the old arrogance. What I saw instead was genuine humility, maybe even respect. And what would my role be in this partnership? I asked. Whatever you want it to be, he said. You'd be the senior partner, the majority owner. I'd work for you, not with you. The words hung in the air between us. Uncle Marcus, who had spent years acting like he was better than me, was now offering to work for me. What about the rest of the family? I asked. They want to make things right too, he said. Sienna's law firm is interested in handling your legal work. Derek wants to manage your marketing and public relations. Even Celeste has been asking if there's anything she can do. I almost laughed. 6 months ago, they couldn't be bothered to return my phone calls. Now they were all eager to work with me. And what makes you think I need any of your help? I asked. Because you're building an empire, he said. And empires need people who understand different aspects of business. We may have been wrong about your character, but we do know how to do our jobs. He had a point. I was successful, but I was also stretched thin. Managing 15 properties, running my consulting business, and handling my investments was more work than one person could reasonably handle. There would be conditions, I said. Name them. First, everyone gets treated with respect. Every employee, regardless of their position. No more looking down on people who work entry-level jobs. Agreed. Second, fair wages for everyone. No more paying people minimum wage while the owners get rich. Agreed. Third, you apologize publicly to everyone who witnessed what happened at the party. You admit that you were wrong about me and that your behavior was unacceptable. He nodded. Slowly. I can do that. And fourth, I said, this is business, not family. You work for me because you're good at your job, not because we share DNA. If you ever treat me with disrespect again, you're fired. No second chances. I understand, he said. Jennifer knocked again. Ms. Chen, your 11 o'clock is here. That's my cue, Uncle Marcus said, standing up. Maya, I want you to know ... I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. Thank you, I said. I'll have my lawyer draw up a partnership agreement. You can start Monday if you want. After he left, I sat back in my chair and smiled. It wasn't revenge that made me feel good. It was the possibility that people could change. The possibility that family could mean something more than shared blood. My phone buzzed with a text from Sienna. Her dad's meeting went well. Thank you for giving him a chance. Maybe we could have coffee sometime. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Maybe. We'll see. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Outside my window, the city continued its busy rhythm. People hurried to meetings, made deals, built their dreams, and I was finally part of that world, not as someone trying to prove herself, but as someone who had already proven everything she needed to prove. My phone rang. It was Jessica, my old college roommate. Maya? She said excitedly. I just heard about your partnership with your uncle's company. Are you serious about that consulting firm we used to dream about? Dead serious, I replied. Are you ready to change the world? I've been ready for years, she laughed. When do we start? How about tomorrow? I said. I think it's time we showed everyone what we can do. As I hung up the phone, I realized something important. The broken little girl who had been mocked at family gatherings was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth, who had built something meaningful, and who would never again let anyone make her feel small. I opened my laptop and got back to work. There were properties to manage, investments to consider, and a future to build, a future where success wasn't measured by other people's approval, but by the impact I could make on the world. The family gathering where they laughed and called me broke felt like a lifetime ago. Now, when I thought about that night, I didn't feel anger or hurt. I felt grateful because sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are. And sometimes the people who doubt you the most are the ones who push you to become more than you ever imagined possible. I picked up my phone and made another call. Jennifer, can you set up a meeting with the city planning committee? I think it's time to expand our operations. After all, I had a business empire to build. And this time, I was building it on my own terms with people who valued hard work, respect, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to prove their worth. The story of Maya Chen, the broke family disappointment, was over. The story of Maya Chen, successful entrepreneur and leader, was just beginning. And this time I was writing it myself. That's Maya's incredible story of going from family disappointment to millionaire boss. Sometimes the people who doubt us the most end up being the most shocked by our success. I'd love to know. Where are you listening from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe to spread more kindness in the world. We all need reminders that we're worth more than other people's opinions. And don't forget to click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another amazing story that will blow your mind. Until next time, remember, you are enough exactly as you are.